What's up, everybody? Thank you so much for watching. So I did a video on why I left Christianity, and I had it uploading. Something went wrong with the upload, and I did not realize it right away. So I apologize. I did think that video was already up. But since I thought it uploaded properly and it originally appeared to, that video was deleted. So here I am basically redoing that same content. So the topic of discussion for this month is basically religion gone wrong. So we're talking about leaving religion, issues we have with religious teachings, and also people who maybe still follow a certain religion, but were disappointed with a certain church group or a certain pastor or a certain study group. So basically all of that is up for discussion this month. But in this video, I want to share my journey, why I left, what issues I had with church, with the Bible, with Christianity in general, all of that. So growing up, I loved going to church. It was like one of my favorite things. I couldn't wait till Sunday. A lot of churches will have midweek events, whether it's, Wednesday night youth group or a Wednesday night church service. So Wednesday nights were always something I look forward to as well. And also, most of the private schools I went to were associated with a church. So a lot of that was also socializing with people that I went to school with. So that was also a fun aspect of it for me. But in general, I definitely did buy into everything, so to speak. I was pretty hardcore. Now, keep in mind, I'm talking about my childhood. It wasn't until I was about 16 that I started really having some serious doubts. But my point is, I wholeheartedly believed. I really felt like I was making my own choice to believe. I think when you're a kid, and especially when you start getting into your teenage years, you feel so much more independent. And as a result, you think that you're thinking in a more independent way without really realizing that you still are very much influenced by your family and those things that you've been taught to believe. You feel like you're making your own choice, but you don't really realize how much of that is just the influence that you're getting from your family. So anyways, every now and then, there would be something that I read in the Bible or that the pastor said that kind of threw me for a loop, and I didn't really know how to deal with it. But at the end of the day, I just went with, I believe in God, I love God, I have faith, and that's pretty much the end of it. So whenever I was confronted with something that was uncomfortable, my response would basically be, well, faith. So I guess my reasoning is maybe I feel like after listening to a lot of other people, kind of a typical path in terms of my reasoning. But anyways, I don't want to get into my whole medical history here. But I've suffered from chronic pain since I was 16. So I started feeling pain in my wrist. A month later, it had gone up all the way to my shoulder, and within a week or two, my whole body was in pain. It's to the point where it's manageable, but we went through about 2 years of doctor visits and tests and different medications and all this stuff that wouldn't work, and I became suicidal in a certain sense. I became very depressed. I was sort of between a rock and a hard place because I didn't want to actually commit suicide. I was afraid of doing that, but I just didn't want to live anymore because I felt like there was no hope. There would be days I could not lift my arms above my head. There would be days I could not hold my head up. So it was a very rough time for me, and not all the time was like that. Sometimes those things were easier for me. So on top of everything I was going through, I was also dealing with a lot of people basically suggesting that I needed to toughen up, or that I wasn't really going through what I said I was going through. So all of these things were just piling up, and it was such a hard time for me mentally. Now, in terms of my faith, initially I had a very open-minded view in terms of what I was going through. I felt like, how can I be selfish? Everyone experiences suffering in this world. Who am I to not be going through something hard? Who am I to sit here and act like everything in my life should be perfect? So therefore, I should just pray more. I should pray for understanding. I should pray for guidance. Maybe there is a lesson from all of this. Maybe there is something I will learn. Maybe there is something that is part of God's greater plan for me. So I'd say for like the first year, that was my attitude. And it got harder and harder and harder, but that was generally what I felt like. And I noticed an immediate switch. Now, I do not know whether or not God is real. I'm not saying that there is absolutely, without a doubt, no God at all. But I do feel that up until that point, I felt some type of presence when I prayed. I felt some type of response when I prayed. And as soon as I started getting sick, even when I had a positive attitude about it, even when all I was doing was praying for guidance and comfort, so on and so forth, that presence was just suddenly gone. Suddenly and completely gone. So it was kind of like, okay, a lot of Christians talk about not always feeling God there. So again, I felt like it wasn't necessarily something that was this tragedy that was unique to me. I felt like, I shouldn't be sitting here feeling sorry for myself. People go through doubts in their faith, and people go through hardships in life. So even though suddenly not feeling God's presence in my life anymore was something that threw me for a loop, I just kind of accepted, okay, this is a part of every Christian's journey. Well, about a year after I started getting sick, keep in mind at this point in time, we still did not have any answers. We were still going through all these, I was having doctor visits every month or every other month. It was just exhausting. It was a tough journey, and I was losing my patience. I was losing my hope. I was depressed. I was frustrated that no one could give me answers. I think anyone who's been through a long medical journey can relate to that, how that feels. Even if you're not the only one, it's just almost impossible to not feel alone and lost. So one of the things that made that so hard is before I even really had doubts about my faith, I felt the absence of God in my life. And I can't explain that. Maybe beforehand I was imagining God talking to me, or maybe there was a God. It's kind of confusing to look back now as someone who's not a Christian. But anyways, I started really thinking outside the box. I started thinking, okay, all this time I've been thinking, okay, my suffering is either a lesson or serves some purpose for God. Okay, fine. As much as I hate it, I can accept that. But I started looking at all the suffering in the world in general, and it was just like, why? How can so many horrible things happen? How can so many awful things happen to people who are good, who pray, who, whatever? And it just really made me feel sick. And unfortunately, the way the church talks about suffering is absolutely sick to me. I hate the way, a lot of it is so, just dismissive and demeaning towards people. And I really hate that crap. I really seriously, genuinely hate that crap. So at the time, I think a big part of the problem was the fact that church and Christians in general were trying to give me answer to these things. And, you can only imagine how that went. From people trying to explain, well, there's only suffering in this world because of sin and blah, 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 blah. And then there's people, well, God has to allow free will. So even when people hurt other people, God has to allow it, or he wouldn't really be God or some crap like that. The way the church addresses suffering is just so petty and so awful. So churches can complain all they want to that there aren't people in this country who are pursuing God, but church is a huge reason as to why. They really turn people away from any pathways to even considering whether or not there's a God, let alone whether or not there's a way that he thinks we should live our lives. But anyways, so I was basically starting to ask all these questions, thinking about other people who were suffering, and just getting these bullshit answers that were sugar-coated or just completely denied reality. I had a conversation with a teacher about this in high school, and he was telling me when he stopped believing. And he said he was a kid going to Catholic church, and he had seen an ad on the TV about basically starving kids in Africa, how you can donate, how you can help, and these images really, really upset him. So he asked the nun, and he said, if God loves us, how can he allow these things to happen? Which really is a completely fair question. And the nun said, God will provide. I mean, what kind of stupid answer is that God will provide? Obviously he doesn't. Okay, when people are starving to death, obviously God is not providing food for them. And that's the problem with religion. People just get so caught up in their blind faith they don't even think about things anymore. Um, so yeah, that's kind of where I was at. It's like all these reasons and excuses are just bullshit. So I started really hating church. I mean, hating church. Um, for one thing, there's all the petty bullshit. There's the gossipy stuff. There's a lot of things about church subcultures that are just really frustrating to deal with in general. But when it came to the actual teachings, I'm sitting there going through all this stuff. I basically feel like God has singled me out and is torturing me just because. And I'm supposed to sit here and praise him. I'm supposed to sit here and act like everything's good. I'm supposed to sit here and worship. I'm supposed to sit here and listen to pastors tell me why I deserve to be suffering and just be cool with it. So I'm the type of person, I generally can't hide my emotions very well anyways. And it got to the point where I would get up and walk out. Um, because I didn't want to make a scene. But of course that in and of itself makes a scene. Um, I was, my parents might not feel this way, but I was genuinely trying to not disrupt the experience of other people. But at the same time, like I said, my face just says it when I feel a certain way. And a lot of those things, those messages were extremely, extremely painful to sit there and listen to. So eventually I was confronted by some relatives about how I was acting at church and why I was having all these doubts and these questions. And of course, like I said, it was very much a confrontation. It really had nothing to do with being in any way genuine about what my doubts and concerns were. It was pretty much this, well, you need to act right in church, so we're going to get to the bottom of this. So I start listing some of my things, and of course I was coming from a different perspective. I was trying to have a genuine conversation, and this person was just freaking resisting me because church was just what you do. You're still a kid. Um, and the conversation ended when I started talking about, because at first I was trying to address real issues, but I was sort of sugarcoating it. Like I addressed the issue of suffering in the world, and well, we don't always feel God there when we pray, so how do we know he's there, and how do we know what God's answers are, and all this other stuff. And I was giving sugar-coated questions, and I was getting sugar-coated answers. So finally I decided to just get real, and I'm like, I feel like God is torturing me, and I'm being told in church that that's just okay, and I'm supposed to just accept it. And this person looked me dead in the face and said, well, that's the devil making you say that. You gotta fucking be kidding me. Are you serious right now? You don't like my argument or my perspective, therefore it's the devil controlling my mind? Get out of town. Like, I'm sorry. That has to be the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life. And that's the day I really, I didn't really give much of reaction, physically in that moment, but mentally, that is the moment where I just threw my hands up in the air and I realized, oh my God, this is so stupid. This shit is just dumb. Why am I listening to any of this crap? Why am I listening to any of this garbage? Why am I following any of this? It doesn't make any sense. And that is the day I really just I think I even went and threw out my Bible that day. And I was the type of person, I was truly evangelical. I had like 2 or 3 main Bibles, and I would alternate which ones I took with me to church. And then I would have like a whole shelf of Bibles just in case anybody asked me for a Bible and I wanted to take one to them. Like, that's how dedicated or devout I was, or whatever the word is the kids use these days. So yeah, I took that pretty seriously. I threw out my Bibles that day. The rest of them, I think I did end up giving away. But I was done. And in a way, that was a burden being lifted. There was so much that I was starting to really disagree with and question when it comes to the Bible. But for the most part, at that point, my main concern was, why is there suffering in the world if God loves us? Why is God absent from our lives if he wants us to follow him? Those kinds of things. But then I started really looking at Christianity in general and realizing that a lot of the stuff in the Bible is just such a load of crap. And were really things that I couldn't actually defend. For example, there's a verse in, I actually saw a Christian woman post something from Second Timothy, that was supposed to be empowering to women, or one of the Timothys. And there's a verse in Second Timothy that says, and I quote, "Women should learn in silence and subjection." How am I, as a woman, supposed to feel about something like that? That's disgusting to me. I am not subhuman because I'm female. I am not worth less because I'm female. And the fact that I just went along with so much of the sexism and the detrimental messages for so long kind of makes me sad, even though for the majority of that time, yes, I was a kid, but still, it truly makes me sad that so many people push this on their kids as if there's nothing wrong with these ideologies, as if there's nothing wrong with these messages. And there's so much about the Bible that is truly sick. Which brings me to the issue of morals. So basically, a lot of churches will say in opposition to atheists, well, if there's no God, there's no morals. Okay, sort of right in the sense that there's no set morals. But a couple things I want to address here. First of all, go listen to a bunch of Christians, okay? There's Baptists, there's Methodists, I can't even think of them right now. I wish I could, Presbyterian, I wish I could list more right now, but I'm just kind of drawing a blank here. But there's so many different sects to Christianity. And then, of course, you have other religions like Catholics and Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormons, who sort of follow the Bible, but they have these extra chapters that, the average Christian does not. So there's so much that has spun off of Christianity, and is supposedly somewhat founded in the Bible. These people will all give you different definitions of their morals. Okay, so Christians can sit there and say that they have the market on morals all they want to, but they will give you different answers. If you go to two different churches of two different sects of Christianity, they will give you different answers to the same question. So Christians don't even know what their own morals are. I mean, individuals know what they think, yes, but Christians have so much debate within their own communities about what they should be teaching, about what parts of the Bible they should be applying to their lives, all this other stuff. I mean, people spend their entire lives studying the Bible. So, and still will say, I have so far to go. I have so much more to learn. So stop presenting Christianity and the Bible as if it's this streamlined, non-debatable, these are the set of morals that we should follow. That's not how it works. If you actually listen to pastors, they will tell you that's not how it works. But in the same breath, they will tell you that they're the only ones who actually know what our morals are supposed to be, according to God. So that in and of itself is very frustrating to me. But of course, once I stop believing, it's like, well, okay, I don't get my morals from church, I don't get my morals from Bible, so what the hell do I believe anymore? And I really went through a period of a couple years where I literally went through every single issue I could think of and thought to myself, what do I think about this? What do I think is right or wrong on this? And why? Which in a way was very healthy. I think it's very good and it's very healthy to analyze your own beliefs. But it was frustrating to me because people talk about the Bible like, of course it's the good book. Of course it gives us our morals. Of course it gives us our principles. I don't know. I mean, it's sexist. It's pro-slavery. It portrays a lot of really evil, awful things as if they're good. I'm really not feeling bad about the fact that I don't get my morals from it. It's a terrible, terrible book. Calling it the good book is one of the worst descriptors you could come up with. That just doesn't make sense, and it's not rational. So ever since then, ever since I that one conversation that really just made me realize how dumb it all was, I walked away. Once I started actually questioning things even more, it was just like, it is so obvious that this is a bunch of crap. It's so obvious. And for anyone watching who is still Christian, your journey is your journey. I am not telling you what to think. I'm not telling you how to feel about any of this. I'm just sharing my own journey. This is where I've been. This is where I'm at. This is how I feel about this particular issue. That's all it is. But I really do have so many problems with the Bible. For one thing, it's something that's been around for so long. It's been through so many translations. Religion in general is something that has been used to control people for so freaking long. So for it to be something that I'm supposed to follow today is absolutely ridiculous to me. I promise you I don't look to it for anything. The only time I do actually still own a Bible today. Well, I actually bought one a few years ago. But it was for the purpose of there was a pastor I'd gotten in discussions with, and I got tired of having to Google certain things. So I just bought a Bible mainly for the purposes of rebuttals, as opposed to studying it and wanting to follow it or any of that stuff. So that is my story. That is how I came to leave Christianity. One other thing I just do want to add before I stop this video is that it was a very bitter and sad experience. To anyone out there who is currently Christian and is upset with someone they know maybe who has left Christianity or is having doubts, you need to understand that's a very difficult thing to go through. And Christians, this is another issue that it drives me crazy how Christians talk about it, because Christians will talk about it like, oh, people just want to be the God of their own lives. They want to take God's place. That, they want to choose what's easy and what's happy over the harder path of following God's will, and so on and so forth. Walking away from this is not easy. I grew up with it. It was a source of comfort to me. It was a source of wonder to me. It was something beautiful that I loved. And to grow up and start asking questions and realize that there weren't rational answers to those questions, and basically feel so lied to and so led on and so played, that's not a good feeling. That's not taking the happy and easy path. In terms of my story, my family might have given me some resistance, but they did ultimately accept it in a relatively smooth transition. But a lot of people face so much more hardship when they tell their family, I just don't believe in this anymore. It is so difficult for some people to do that. I didn't think about this much at the time, but I'm actually very, very lucky that I did not receive more pushback, more vitriol from my own family, because a lot of people will deal with that when they walk away from their faith. There are families who believe it's perfectly rational to disown family members for walking away from their faith, even making threats, those kinds of things. Of course, that refers to other things, not just Christianity, by the way. But anyways, it's something that's hard. It's not just this easy, fun, fun, sinful choice. It's a difficult choice, and it takes time. And, everyone who's part of any religion, I think, goes through periods where they have doubts. But to actually spend that much time thinking about it, to actually spend that much time going through all that analysis of everything you've ever been taught and combing through all of that, it was very time consuming. It took a long time from when I first started having some questions in the back of my mind to when I really actually realized, okay, this doesn't make sense and I don't believe this to be the truth anymore. It was about a period of 2 years. I didn't just wake up one day and go, I'm going to be a rebel today. That's not how it works. And for those of you who are religious and are dealing with someone in your family who's having doubts or is thinking about walking away from something, just please keep in mind, it's not an easy thing for them to do. It is a tough journey. It's also a journey that they feel very alone in. Obviously, if they're having these kinds of doubts, they don't feel God in their lives. And for a lot of them, they used to very much feel God in their lives. It's a matter of abandonment. So that's what I have to say on that. If you know someone who's going through something like that, I understand if you are a religious person being upset by it. Like, I get that. You are certainly entitled to how you feel. You're certainly entitled to your perspective on the matter. But just understand, it's not an easy thing to go through. It's very painful. It's very hard. And it's a lot of work too, because you basically have to like reinvent your entire self and analyze everything you've ever said, thought, or believed in. So it's quite time consuming. And it's a very difficult thing to go through. So that is my story. If you have been through something similar, please leave your thoughts below. If you enjoyed this video, half this video, or even a quarter of this video, please hit the like button. Don't be afraid to subscribe, and more videos will be coming soon.